in private. That we did a segment one time about. I'm trying to remember secession. Whether or not secession was treason,
right?
Or calling for secession was treason, and I got myself all twisted around in a knot.
Yes.
Because at first I started with the premise that I believed it was, and then in working through what treason actually is and how it's defined and what the punishments are, and that it really isn't. And people are throwing around, I think it's just rhetoric. This is political rhetoric. I don't believe anyone is saying we should go, although there are some callers to some radio shows that would like to throw these guys in jail.
Yeah. I can't say that I disagree with them that much.
It's because inherently we feel that it's bad and that it's hurting America.
Right.
That it's hurting our nation, it's hurting our citizens.
They're the ones that constantly cry.
Therefore, it must be against the law. So now we're looking for a law. So we throw things that seem like it might be. Of course, hurting America, treason. It's not. Treason is when you actually, help someone who's taking up arms or there's some kind of act of aggression towards the establishment. They are part of it. So it's not that. Blackmail is when you threaten to reveal something that's damaging to someone's reputation, and if you don't pay me, I'm going to reveal this. So it's definitely not blackmail.
Now,
the closest one would be extortion. Well, okay, go ahead, Grid.
Blackmail? Okay, so the Tea Party may not be blackmailing the Democrats.
No.
But we could hypothesize that the Tea Party is blackmailing John Boehner to keep this vote off the floor. Just saying. I mean, the guy's drunk in public.
Right.
I'm guessing there's a few skeletons in that closet.
If he's drunk in public, then that's not even a private thing that could embarrass him.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
It's one of those open secrets.
Right, but if he acts that badly in public, imagine what his private life looks like.
Welcome to Talking Left, where we speculate about everything.
You're darn right. Just some say.
Yeah, I've got a theory on how we can turn this all thing around.
Some
say. So then extortion. And extortion is probably the closest one. Extortion is when you say, give me something of value or I'm going to harm you. Think mafia. The stereotypical.
You got to pay for protection money over
right. If you don't pay me, then something bad could happen.
Yeah.
All right. Think about it. So it's probably the closest thing to that. But then you also get into the situation where legislators, when acting in the legislative capacity, are pretty much immune. They would have to, break some criminal bribery, Hobbs Act, all kinds of things like that. So I know it feels wrong, but it probably isn't treason. It isn't treason. It certainly isn't blackmail, and it's probably not extortion. And by the way, if we call this extortion, then pretty much all of politics is extortion.
Well, that's probably a little true.
Politics in that gray area is extortion.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree on either side, but I'm so sick of this. We're shutting down the government because we're patriotic, because we're standing up to this authoritarian executive branch who shoved healthcare down people's throat. I am so angry. This is not patriotism.
I love our country, but I hate our government. It doesn't seem... I love the individual spirit and entrepreneurial spirit of Americans, but the institutions we don't like very much, so we're going to run them really badly. We're going to shut them down, but we're not going to tell you what parts are still open that you're actually using on a daily basis, so you'll hate government too. So when we come in and say, I'd like to regulate energy industries, so I don't like big government. You see how badly they're run? Why in the world would you trust them? Look at the DMV. If we run it badly enough, you'll hate government.
Yeah.
If you're really bad at it.
I know, but that is not patriotism. I'm sorry. I don't care.
That's why they're opening up. They're showing up at World War II memorials.
Right. They want to wrap themselves in the freaking flag.
Sure. Who doesn't?
It's nonsense. You can't destroy the country and then say you care about it. It doesn't work that way. You might fool yourselves, but late at night when you're sitting there by yourself, you know damn good and well that you're preaching a bunch of nonsense. I'm sorry. It's nonsense.
There you have it.
Yes. So anyway, I guess we have to run to a break. Yeah. I get a little carried away. I'm angry by what these Tea Party people are doing.
This was the first Sunday where I was worried we didn't have a dump button.
Yes.
Quite honestly, because I've been ranting.
And you could have used a dump button even in those rants.
No, we were fine. Yeah, we were fine, but we're gonna ease things up a little bit for a little bit, and then we'll go back to bashing.
We're gonna have a little fun and speak to a fiction author, Peter G. He is the author of Hannah Singer's Celestial Advocate, and we're gonna be speaking with him next. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be right back with Peter G.
What is this? What's going on?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano. It's Thursday, October 3rd, 2013.
Hurricane watches are up for all of our coastal counties.
Non-essential FEMA workers essential after all, as possible hurricane threatens the Gulf Coast.
The environmental group has described the charges, punishable by up to 15 years in prison, as absurd.
Russia charges Greenpeace activists with piracy.
Oh, that's a Tesla, dude.
Tesla electric car battery catches fire. Do cities have the right to ban plastic bags? Plus,
make sure everyone knows that we only get one shot here.
What the corporate media didn't tell you about the new UN climate report.
All of that and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Day 2 of the federal government shutdown, and surprise, surprise, the sky didn't fall, and even if it had, we wouldn't know because NASA is shut down too.
This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal has declared a state of emergency in Louisiana as Karen bears down on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, it turns out that non-essential FEMA workers are actually essential after all. Federal FEMA workers who were furloughed for the government shutdown have been called back to work to prepare and pre-stage emergency response equipment in advance of Tropical Storm Karen. The National Hurricane Center has issued a hurricane watch for much of the Gulf Coast and predicts landfall sometime on Saturday. NOAA has had to shift spending in order to keep the Hurricane Center open during this dangerous time.
Shift spending because their spending has been cut off due to the shutdown?
Yes.
They're moving around the money they do have just so that they can stay open during hurricane season.
That's right.
Lovely.
The corporate media has moved on from the UN's new climate report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
Moved on? Did they ever cover it in the first place?
They did a little bit.
I didn't notice.
But here's what they didn't tell you.
Anything?
The mild-mannered scientists...
Mild-mannered tyrants.
...pushed back at climate science deniers who have misrepresented the IPCC's lowering of the bottom range of their temperature projections for coming decades. The Secretary General of the WMO says no, a potentially lower rise in global temperatures does not buy us some time.
People have started to argue that the lower part of the increase is such that maybe we have time. No, actually it's quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite because the low band comes only if very quick and aggressive action is taken.
So what he's saying here is there's a sort of a low and high prediction of how warm it might get, and people are pointing to it and saying, see, that lower prediction means we've got plenty of time. We don't have to worry about it. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, you are. And he says, no, we do not have that time. We only get there if action is taken.
We only get to the lower bound if action is taken.
Right.
Got it.
And for the first time ever, the IPCC scientists have estimated a carbon budget. That's an absolute limit on the amount of carbon that can be emitted from fossil fuels if we want to avoid the scarier impacts of climate change. Dr. Michael Oppenheimer of Penn State University put the carbon budget into blunt terms.
If we don't change our emissions of the greenhouse gases, then we will have emitted enough by around 2040, which is only about 25 years in the future, that we'll be eventually beyond the danger point in terms of temperature.
And the impacts of climate change continue to accelerate. The fabled Northwest Passage in the Arctic is no longer fabled. The first full-sized cargo ship just crossed the Arctic Ocean using it as a shortcut from Vancouver to Greenland. And guess what it was carrying?
Cheese dip.
Nope. Coal.
Lovely. Just to rub it in, eh?
Meanwhile, Russia has charged 28 Greenpeace activists and 2 journalists with piracy after 2 of the activists climbed aboard Russia's first Arctic offshore drilling rig 2 weeks ago in a peaceful protest to halt Arctic drilling. They now face up to 15 years in Russian prison.
Ironically, Russia said these Greenpeace activists could have caused a major ecological disaster.
I know. Boggles the mind.
Oh, dude. That's a brand new car. Oh, that's a Tesla, dude.
Tesla Motors says a battery fire in one of its cars in Seattle on Wednesday was not spontaneous, but appears to have been caused by a large piece of metal on the roadway. No one was injured, but firefighters did have a bit of a learning curve in putting that battery fire out. Good news, furniture retailer IKEA has announced it will start selling affordable rooftop solar panel kits with professional installation at all of its stores, but only for customers in Britain.
Why not here in the U.S.?
I guess they don't like us yet.
I see.
Do cities and counties have a legal right to ban single-use plastic bags? The California Supreme Court says yes, again, after yet another lawsuit by plastic bag manufacturers.
Once again, the tyranny of big bag.
Well, plastic bag bans are an increasingly popular tool for cities to cut the cost to taxpayers of cleaning up plastic bag litter.
Nice. Good. Take that, big bag. For much more on that story and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. While you're there, please consider dropping a donation into our rather small bag. Find us and like us on the Facebook and follow us 24/7 on the Twitters at Green News Report. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Ain't no drag. Papa's got a...
Broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., this is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you are checking us out. SoFlo Radio, WEAC Radio 1480 AM in D.C., or maybe hanging out in the chat room with us over at TalkingLeft.com. We are taking a break from government shutdown and Tea Party news and hanging out with Peter G., the author of Hannah Singer, Celestial Advocate. You can check it out on Amazon. It's a great book. I just finished reading it, and it was lots of fun. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
We were very excited to speak with you. I really enjoyed your book. It kind of flips religious ideas on their head as far as who would get into heaven and who wouldn't. How did you come up with the idea for Hannah Singer, and tell the audience a little bit about how you flipped those ideas around?
Well, the whole origin of the whole thing, I guess it started with my own religious education. I was raised as a traditional Catholic, but I never quite saw eye to eye with the establishment. I remember one of the biggest arguments I had with my mother when I was a teenager was when I told her that because I believe in the Bible, I believe there's a hell, but because I believe in God's mercy, I believe it's empty. I mean, I can't believe for a minute God would be cruel enough to condemn someone to an eternity of suffering. You'd have thought I said nuke the world or something. She blew up. And, I mean, keep in mind that is, a oversimplification. I mean, I can guarantee you right now Ariel Castro is roasting on a spit. But as time went on and I started learning more about my faith and everything, I think it was like a decade ago, maybe. There were 5 churches in the Carolinas. I don't remember if it was north or south. And they decided that they want to ordain women as priests. They decided to ordain 5 women. And in order to do so, because the Catholic Church does not allow that to happen, they had to secede from the Catholic Church proper. And the Catholic Church responded to this by excommunicating the 5 women priests. No one else, not the ones who appointed them or anything like that, just the 5 women. Now, I'm familiar with excommunication, and I heard that in the news, and I thought, well, that's kind of harsh. If only there was someone on the other side who would stand up for them when their souls are judged. And Hannah Singer was born.
And this book is written, it's essentially 7 short stories. It's a great book for people to pick up if they want to read for a couple hours and then put it down for a bit. I really enjoyed it. I just finished the entire book. I'm waiting to get the next one from Amazon. Have you gotten any negative reaction from people who maybe don't agree with the fact that Hannah Singer, your lead character, is, or was rather, an atheist, and she represents some interesting people to try and save their souls and get them into heaven? Have you gotten any negative feedback from this, or people who disagree with your ideas?
Oh, yes. The reaction has actually been all over the map. I mean, on the one hand, I did a book show where I was trying to sell the books and work the crowd, and a guy who was a fundamentalist absolutely hated the whole premise, because the whole idea of the Hannah Singer universe, as St. Michael the Archangel points out in one of the stories, is that if God is so anxious to condemn people to hell, if he can't wait to see you suffer, why are there so many ways to earn forgiveness? And he did not appreciate that. He was one of the ones that basically, you just do exactly as this says, very fundamentalist train of thought. You just do this, you believe this, and that's what gets you in, and if you believe otherwise, well, you're sunk. You know, it's like I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Chick tracts that they have in hospitals and stuff. They're these odd little comic books that purport to teach Christianity, but they teach a very heartless kind of it. It's probably the best example is one called The Gunslinger, where this guy who, set in the Old West, he kills people, he robs banks, he's unrepentant about it. He goes to a church service while waiting to pull his next job, and he sees the light. He's found by a lawman who shoots him dead, and because he repented, he gets to go to heaven. The lawman who has defended people and tried to see justice done, but he doesn't believe in God, he dies and he goes to hell. And it's like, but what about, all the good deeds that they've done? And what about, this guy who up until 5 minutes before he died was proud of all the evil he'd done? That doesn't square with me. And that becomes kind of a sticking point, especially when, if you're familiar with the Old Testament and the Torah, which is what the Old Testament is based on, it says explicitly that good souls go to heaven. Doesn't matter if they're atheist, Gentile, Jew, anything. If you're good, you get in. And that became the fundamental point of the whole stories. And there's people who don't like that. There's also people who appreciate it. I found out that there's one woman, she runs a teen youth ministry, and she's been reading the stories out loud and prompting discussion with the other kids and stuff to explore these religious ideas. So, yeah, I've had some hatred, but I've also had some great feedback as well.
I just want to remind everybody, we're speaking with Peter G. He's the author of Hannah Singer, Celestial Advocate. You can get it on Amazon. It's a great book. I had lots of fun reading it. Just to bring this somewhat into the issues we're dealing with today, I think the overall idea in your book, at least if I gathered it correctly from reading, is that it's much more important to be a good person, to care about your fellow man, than it is to devote yourself to a specific religion or a specific idea. Did I gather that correctly? And do you think maybe our society as a whole could stand to embrace that a little bit more, that it's much more about caring about others than following a specific doctrine?
You are absolutely correct, because even in the Bible itself, there's lots of references to you're nice to people even if they don't do the same thing you do. The story of Abraham, for example, who he had breakfast with everybody or with some person every day, and one day the person who came by was a pagan, and he chased the pagan out saying, I don't want to have anything to do with you, and God basically smacked him on the head and said, would it have killed you to have been nice to the guy for a little bit? And we've gotten to this odd point where, I mean, everybody is so afraid of what they're going to do, because doing your own religious thing, that takes a lot of courage, because you've got a bunch of people saying, no, you're being naughty, you're being sinful, you're going to burn in hell. And along the way, we've lost sight of that we're supposed to get along together. We're supposed to support each other. We're supposed to look out for each other's deficiencies. No one person can be everything. And in the course of that, we've gotten into a world where it's even fractured among Christians. You've got the Protestants don't like the Catholics don't like the Protestants, and there's no reason for that whatsoever. So yes, the whole thing is about how it's more important to be there for each other. I mean, Hannah's whole point is that she's already won her trial. She won it 700 years ago. She is foregoing heaven for the moment because she wants to make sure people are protected. Her own beliefs and her own salvation don't matter to her if she gets in and other good people cannot. So yes, you are correct in that.
Well, I really think that some members of Congress could stand to read this book and just see that at least some of us out there believe that it's much more important to be good to others, to, excuse me, do the things that Jesus talked about, feed the poor, take care of the sick, be kind to our fellow man. Just to throw something out from left field, and I hope I don't catch you off guard.
You do mean left field.
Yes. I was curious of your thoughts on the new Pope, Pope Francis, who has come out and railed against, the love of money, who has said that he doesn't have the right to judge gay people, that women should have the right to be leaders in the church, and on and on and on, where I think that kind of expresses the ideals that your book talks about. Have you thought about that at all? Any opinions on Pope Francis?
Yes, I watched Pope Francis initially with some skepticism, because we went from Pope John Paul II, who was a very conservative pope, to Benedict, who was farther beyond that than anything. And initially, some of Francis's statements about the role of gays in society and stuff like that did bother me. But as I'm watching him, I mean, let's face it, when the guy first became pope, he just came out in his normal clothes. He didn't come out with the cape and everything like that. He was not into the pomp and circumstance. And even if he disagrees with the stuff, he's still saying we should not judge. We should, there's more important things going on. I think he's actually walking the walk instead of just talking it. So I'm very surprised, and I'm very impressed with the guy. Yeah. I'm hoping that I'm not being fooled, but I don't think this guy's got it in him to be phony.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're moving in the right direction here.
I think you're right. I think it could be a dramatic change in the church, and he's gotten so much press and so much support, where I also was, my parents were raised very strictly Catholic, so that was probably the religion that was that I was around the most. And so it's very interesting for me to see this, and it was very interesting for me to read your book and see how, you show gay people, pornographers, atheists all getting into heaven, while some religious leaders did not because of their lifestyle. And it was so much fun. I'm really looking forward to reading the next books. Do you plan to write more after the 3 you've already written?
Oh, heavens, yes. I'm working on the 4th one right now, in fact. The 2 stories I'm currently in the middle of, one of them deals with what happens if you are literally not the person you were when the sin was committed. The subject is a football player who, because of concussions, he loses part of his memory and part of his personality. And so he alternates between times when he remembers the old days and, yeah, what a great guy I was, and then times when that falls away, it's like, what did I do? And the question is, well, does he get into heaven or not? Because he still did the acts, but at the same time, he is kind of different now.
Yeah.
And the second one is more of a comedy piece. As you've noticed, I can swing back and forth between drama and comedy. The second one is one of my favorites because the lead church, Jeff Fairchild, who you've seen in the book, he's a very despicable person. He maintains that when women hit that time of month, they're exaggerating to get extra sympathy. He winds up getting to experience it for himself.
Oh, I can't wait to read that one. Peter, I am intrigued, and I'm looking forward to the next few books. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and lots of fun talking to you.
Great. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Peter G. The book is Hannah Singer, Celestial Advocate. You can pick it up on Amazon, and of course we will put the links up with the blog post after the show. Still have so much in store today.
Sounds fascinating. I get the book next.
Yes. Well, I'm done with this one, so you can read it now, and I'll get the next one.
Sounds good.
Yes. But lots of fun, and it's a great, relaxing read, despite the serious subject matter. It really is a fun read. People should go and pick it up.
Cool.
You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle Encheno. We have Justin Duckham of Talk Radio News Service coming up in just a few minutes. He was at the D.C. shooting this week, so he's going to share that with us. You're listening to Talking Left. Stick around.
A beautiful place full of wonderful things just waiting to be experienced.
It's Talking Left with Danielle Encheno.
Attention men, if you're urinating more often or waking up at night to urinate, New Vitality wants to send you a free bottle of their best-selling supplement, Super Beta Prostate. Super Beta has an ingredient shown to reduce the urge to urinate and reduce waking at night to go. New Vitality has already shipped over 7 million bottles, and they're ready to send you a free bottle today.
I used to have to get up 2-3 times a night. Now, maybe once, if at all.
Now, with Super Beta, I find that I can comfortably get to my destination without the concern of this uncontrollable urge to want to use the bathroom.
One of the main benefits of Super Beta Prostate is that I didn't have to go to the bathroom 3 times in the middle of the night.
If you're a man who's urinating more often or waking at night to go, it's your turn to try a free bottle of Super Beta Prostate. You only pay shipping and handling. For details, call 1-800-939-3427. That's 1-800-939-3427. Call 1-800-939-3427.
If you're a responsible homeowner who's faithfully made your mortgage payments, you deserve thanks for doing the right thing. And I'd like to tell you about a powerful financial tool that rewards your responsibility. Hi, I'm Jay Farner, president of Quicken Loans, and the tool that I'm talking about is the Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP. HARP is designed to help you lower your mortgage payments. It's for responsible homeowners who are current on their payments, but due to the housing market may have little or no equity left in their home. And even if you were unable to get a HARP loan in the past, new guidelines mean that now you may be eligible. Over 2.5 million homeowners have already taken advantage of HARP and are saving an average of $250 a month. If you're one of the millions yet to take advantage, call us today at 800-QUICKEN. To learn more, call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com. That number again is 800-QUICKEN.
Important terms and conditions apply. Call us for cost information. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hey, Bob, how's business? Is the new website helping?
Not good. I can't figure out how to get the website finished. How did you do it?
Easy. I called Web.com. They built my website for free.
Wow, free? Really? Web.com?
Yep, and in just 7 days. Then they promoted it on all the search engines.
Like Google, Yahoo, and Bing?
Exactly. And Web.com has helped grow my business so much, I had to bring on new staff.
Hey, if Web.com did it for you, they're perfect for me.
Web.com can build your website for free in as little as 7 days. If after 30 days you're happy with your new website, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance, all for just one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing. Call now. 855-747-SITE. 855-747-SITE. 855-747-7483. Or go to web.com/radio. There is no upfront charge for building the website, after which the ongoing fee applies. Rights to the website are relinquished upon cancellation unless otherwise purchased.
We live in a world where entire fortunes can disappear in seconds. There is, however, one investment so safe. No investor has ever lost a dime of principal or a nickel of interest. Municipal bonds backed by the leader in bond insurance, Assured Guaranty. With a quarter-century of experience and $12 billion in claims-paying resources, ask your financial advisor about Assured Guaranty. For investors who embrace possibilities, but invest in certainties.
Is breakfast really the most important meal of the day? At Buffalo Wild Wings, we think a case can be made for lunch. Think about it. Award-winning hand-spun wings in 16 signature sauces and 5 seasonings, Buffalitos, wraps, burgers, and salads. Yeah, we're thinking that's a pretty good argument. Now throw in the fact that we've got over 50 big screens to watch all the sports you'll ever want. It's officially a no-brainer. So next time, make lunch your game-winning meal.
Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Big thanks to Heather Bevan and Peter G., who have been great guests so far. We gave you a break from the government shutdown, but you knew it couldn't last too
It's still
long.
shut down.
It's still shut down.
At least as of our broadcasting right now.
Yes.
On Sunday.
And, you know, how is it that we're going to pressure the Tea Party?
Right. Everyone's talking about an end game here.
Right.
An end game. There is a very, 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 very simple end game. And there have been a lot of representatives on the Democratic side who said this is real simple. There are enough votes in the House. There is one person standing in the way. That one person is John Boehner.
Right.
John Boehner is insisting. John Boehner is the gatekeeper as the Speaker of the House of what gets to the floor. I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but I'm going to go through it real quick. So there are enough votes with Democrats put together with the old Republican Party, what I like to call the Whigs, and they could pass funding for the government. The government would reopen. They would pass the debt ceiling increase. It would be over with. Done. So one person, the gatekeeper, is keeping that from going to the floor under pressure from a handful of Tea Partiers. Right now, to heck with the rhetoric, to heck with the extortion, treason, all of this, cutting it right down to the core, there's one person and one person alone we have to convince at this moment for an end game, and that is John Boehner. John Boehner is the one single person that if we convince him, this is all over with and we can go on with business.
And we'd have to do some pretty darn heavy convincing, considering that he may lose his speakership by, agreeing to the Democratic side here. He could very well lose his job.
Right. Well, he could lose his speakership job. So the only way that you can convince him and I use the word threaten, but it's a political threat, is for him to lose his job, period.
Right.
So if we, instead of trying to berate the Republicans as a whole, even as much as they deserve it, with rhetoric and this and that and the other thing, we just have to convince John Boehner.
So how do we do that?
We put a line around his district, John Boehner's district, just you, John, just you. The federal government we're not just talking about easing the pain when it comes to the federal government being closed. The federal government is officially closed in your district in every single way, shape, and form imaginable. This serves two purposes. It does put a lot of pain on people in his district, but it puts pressure on him. And two, you're going to be able to go in there with cameras and say, what does the federal government mean to you now?
Right.
Federal roads, I'm talking about federal roads, closed, barricaded, done. No postal service, no social security checks. Federal hospitals closed, no air traffic over it. There's an airport in his district, closed. Every bit of the federal government that applies to John Boehner's district, close it now. All of it, 100%. If you work for the federal government and you live in John Boehner's district, I'm sorry. You are out of a job.
Talk to Boehner.
Talk to your representative. Convince your representative.
Right.
And tell him if he doesn't do it right now, you're going to vote his butt out.
And I realize that this would cause a lot of pain. But without any pain here, people are able to buy into the Tea Party meme that see, you don't need government that much.
Right.
What somebody on Fox, I can't remember who said this, a woman said people are going to realize they can survive with a lot less government. Well, they can, as long as the portion of the government that they need isn't a part that they need.
Right.
So the part that's shut down doesn't apply to them.
And when you think about it, they say, well, 90%. I don't know what I'm going to mess up the percentages here, but 90% of the government is, the mandatory entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and then on a discretionary, it's the military. And guess what? All of that's being funded right now. So the government really isn't shut down.
Right.
It isn't. The only thing they're shutting down are the social safety net, the ones that not as many people they consider the bad ones.
Right, and the people who don't have time or energy
right.
to go out and stand in front of news cameras and explain the effect that this is having on them. When you're taking care of your children, when you're taking care of a sick parent, when you are
working 3 jobs.
Yeah, standing in
being
line.
Being all-American, according to Bush.
Standing in line for an hour so that you can use your WIC benefits.
Right.
You do not have time to go and explain what this government shutdown is doing to you.
Right. So shut down John Boehner's district. I'm serious. Federal, anything.
And Obama has the power to do it.
Yeah, he'd probably get in a good deal of trouble.
Yeah, I know. But, at some point we need to fight fire with fire. I realize that Democrats do not want to get into the fray with Republicans, but sometimes you need to get down in the mud and fight dirty just like they do.
In all of our efforts to be reasonable and moderate, our way of negotiating is saying we're going to the Republicans are messing this up, and we're going to try to make it as painless as possible. But at the same time, as we make it as painless as possible, it furthers them, it lets them get away with this tactic.
Right.
The way to stop it is to convince that one man, and this would convince him quick.
I think so.
It would take about 24 hours.
Yeah, and I don't know what other option we have.
I don't like it. I would feel awful for the people in his district, but I don't think it would last long.
I'm so torn because, I do have that compassion for people who need their Social Security benefits, who need to get to work on federal roads, who maybe are waiting for that medicine to arrive in the mail or have a surgery scheduled at a federal hospital.
Right.
These are people who deserve the benefits of government that they either paid taxes into or continue to pay taxes into to support. Right. They are entitled to a government that functions. And John Boehner,
we need to start embracing that word. I like it.
I like it too. Anyhow, that shut down Boehner's district.
Shut it down.
All right. Well, that's
as Mike Pence famously said. Shut it down.
Yeah.
Shut it down.
See how you can survive without government then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, we are going to come back with Justin Duckham. He is the congressional reporter for Talk Radio News Service. You can check it out at talkradionews.com and follow him at jduckham.
See what he thinks of my idea.
Yeah. Let's see what Justin has to say about that. We'll be right back here on Talking Left, so stick around.
I'm David Schuster, and you're listening to my favorite show other than my own, Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
J.P. Morgan was recently socked in the wallet by financial regulators who levied a fine of nearly $1 billion against the Wall Street baron for massive illegalities. Well, not a fine against John Pierpont Morgan, the man. This 19th century robber baron was born to a great banking fortune and, by hook and crook, leveraged it to become the king of American finance. During the Gilded Age, Morgan cornered the U.S. financial markets, gained monopoly ownership of railroads, amassed a vast supply of the nation's gold, and used his investment power to create U.S. Steel and take control of that market. From his earliest days in high finance, Morgan was a hustler who often traded on the shady side. In the Civil War, for example, his family bought his way out of military duty, but he saw another way to serve. Himself, that is. Morgan bought defective rifles for $5 each and sold them to the Union Army for a hefty profit. Rifles blew up in soldiers' faces, but Morgan pleaded ignorance, and government investigators graciously absolved the young, wealthy, well-connected financier of any fault. That seems to have set a pattern for his lifetime of antitrust violations, union busting, and other over-the-edge profiteering practices. He drew numerous official charges, but, of course, he never did any jail time. Moving the clock forward, we come to J.P. Morgan Chase, today's financial powerhouse bearing J.P.'s name. The bank also inherited his pattern of committing multiple illegalities and walking away scot-free. Oh, sure, the bank was hit with that big fine, but not a single one of the top bankers who committed gross wrongdoing were charged or even fired, much less sent to jail. This is Jim Hightower saying, the lesson we need to learn is that banks don't commit crimes. Bankers do. And they won't ever stop if they don't have to pay for their crimes.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. John O'Grady, president of AFGE Local 704 in Chicago, representing Environmental Protection Agency workers, says the House Republican government shutdown caused by the obsession to stop the Affordable Care Act is irresponsible and harmful to workers. O'Grady says with 48 million Americans without health insurance, it is right and proper for the government to step in to help them.
It has to be a federal government that takes care of that. And why these people want to treat the poor and the most sensitive in our community in this manner is beyond me.
O'Grady says members of Congress responsible for the government shutdown are callously using workers as pawns and are not acting in the public interest.
A lack of statesmanship. We're seeing a lack of elected leaders doing their job. They are playing with government employees and the government budget as if it's all a bunch of pawns. They are not thinking about why they're in Washington, which is to work on behalf of the American people.
The White House reiterated that it will not negotiate over Obamacare and said Wednesday the president is not asking for a single thing from congressional Republicans except to simply fund the government and end the shutdown. Low-wage federal workers employed through private contractors at the Smithsonian Museum protested against the Republican government shutdown at Republican House Speaker John Boehner's rally at the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. Wednesday. They chanted, "We are all essential," and they demanded that Republicans let them return to work and earn the daily wages they need to support their families. The workers are shut out of their jobs by the government shutdown and are among the least likely to get back pay after the government shutdown ends. The Affordable Care Act has not been shut down despite 800,000 federal workers being furloughed by congressional Republicans. Jesse Russell reports.
Even with the federal government shutdown, the Affordable Care Act's marketplaces went live across the country on Tuesday. Tuesday saw millions of people visiting the websites of these exchanges to either sign up for insurance or to simply see what they're all about. In Virginia, an estimated 844,000 people are uninsured and qualified qualify for coverage. According to data released by the federal government, the average premium for a Virginia family of 4 with a household income of $50,000 choosing a mid-range plan would pay $282 per month after tax credits. To help individuals through the sign-up process, funding has been provided for healthcare navigators. In Virginia, those navigators are being managed by the Virginia Poverty Law Center through the website enroll-virginia.com.
5,000 registered nurses and professional healthcare workers have decided to affiliate with the Office of Professional Employees International Union. The Florida Nurses Association and Employment Relations Council have joined OPEIU's Nurses Council. OPEIU President Michael Goodwin says the OPEIU Nurses Council promotes best practices on patient care, staffing levels, and nurse safety, particularly as they navigate the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. The affiliation allows the nurses to retain their autonomy while providing substantial resources for growth.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
I started going cold turkey. Well, at least when I'm in the car.
I know I shouldn't do it, but it's so hard to stop. That's why I hide it from myself, so I won't be tempted.
I used to do it all the time. I stopped by locking it in my glove compartment.
My friend used to do it way too much. Now I turn it off when we're in the car.
My solution is simple. I just don't do it. There are lots of ways to stop yourself and others from texting and driving. How will you stop? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. And joining us now, hopefully if our connection has stayed, is Justin Duckham, congressional reporter for the Talk Radio News Service. Justin, I think we may be having a Skype problem today. Are you still with us?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just having some issues with my connection. Can you repeat that one more time?
Well, hopefully the issue isn't on our side. Justin, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's not your fault at all. Justin, you were at the Capitol this week during this D.C. shooting event, and there, granted, is a whole discussion to be had about possible excessive force from the police, but let us know what it was like for you there and what happened and what you experienced.
Well, I was there at around 2 o'clock when the shots were initially detected by the Capitol Police. I was actually in the Senate booth that we have in the Capitol on the Senate side. That's where we usually, have our radio equipment and do our work from there. And I was watching kind of absentmindedly the closed circuit television showing the Senate floor proceedings. And suddenly, over that, the Senate Sergeant at Arms announced that there were gunshots heard at the Capitol and urged people to shelter in place. I was sort of an idiot and did not shelter in place, nor did quite a few other reporters who all started wandering around the Capitol and started poking around windows and trying to get closer to whatever action there could be. It was a quick police team. There were dozens of police officers driving by in SUVs. There were, quite a few officers perched directly outside of the Capitol in combat positions. And there was quite a few people inside, sort of yelling at reporters to get out of the way and trying to keep the situation calm. And it was absolutely tense. It was a bit of an overreaction considering what we know now, but at the time, everybody naturally thought it was a mass shooter.
Yeah, and I am a little torn, my personal feelings on whether or not this was excessive force. It does seem to me like the police probably didn't need to shoot and kill this woman, but what do you do when somebody's possibly trying to go after the president or Congress? With that said, the Capitol Police, love them or hate them, whatever you feel about what occurred last week, they are about to be subject to the government shutdown and lose their pay. What happens then? Are they still going to be on the job without pay to protect our nation's capital?
Well, I believe there have been steps taken that means that they're going to get back pay once the government reopens. But for the meantime, they are going to be operating without direct pay. They're going to be going through this week if there's no shutdown without getting their usual salary. And that's something that really has irked quite a few people on the Hill. I know I've spoken to a few security officials, and they are less than eager to talk about it, but they, have acknowledged that this is something that's going on. It's something that is really certainly an injustice. And also it's worth noting that during the lockdown that we saw, they were also working without pay, and just as a sort of a testament to a lot of the people on the Capitol Hill Police Force, I guess, in the Senate Sergeant at Arms office, nobody is really griping during that crisis about not getting their pay on time. They all were acting as if they were with the utmost enthusiasm and whatnot. So that's just a little shout out to that.
Yeah, it is impressive that they care enough about this country to do their jobs regardless of whether or not they get paid, unlike some in the Tea Party who do get paid and still don't want to do their jobs. You're the congressional reporter for Talk Radio News, so you often are, in the belly of the beast in Congress, seeing what's happening. I just want to remind everybody, we're speaking with Justin Duckham, the congressional reporter for Talk Radio News Service. You can check it out at talkradionews.com. Follow Justin on Twitter at jduckham. What's your thoughts about a possible resolution? Are we going to see this shutdown roll into the debt ceiling?
That's what it looks like right now. This was supposed to be something that a lot of people presumed was just going to last for about 2 days or so, but it looks like it is going to be much more prolonged, since there really, is no way for the Republican Party at this place, at this point, at least in terms of Boehner, to save face. So it does look like it's going to roll into the debt ceiling, but if there is a silver lining, it does mean that they are going to have a lot less leverage moving into the debt ceiling, which is good, since, of course, if that is not raised, it's an economic catastrophe. And they were also demanding things, a lot more bizarre than just simply delaying Obamacare with their, magical GOP wish list of what they would raise the debt ceiling for. So they have less leverage for that now, and hopefully they will recognize that. Now,
you say less leverage. A lot of people worry that they may have more leverage just because of the gravity of what could actually happen if we breach the debt ceiling. But you say less leverage. You think they'd be more willing to compromise to, keep the economic security of our nation intact? Is that?
Well, I think at this point there's enough Republicans who are, sort of fed up with a lot of the hostage-taking moves that have been going on. This is usually the actions of about 30 in the caucus, and, due to the slim majorities in the House, you sort of need to appease them, at least if you're Boehner. So I think we're going to maybe see quite a bit of a backlash leading up to it. I think there are enough Republicans who are afraid of the major economic consequences to try to shout down those, more powerful forces.
But Justin, aren't there enough Republicans right now to fund the government and open it back up? But it's really up to John Boehner, and he's the one in the way. So when you say that there's less leverage, are you saying that John Boehner probably would just put this out there and not follow the Hastert rule?
Well, I don't think Boehner really has the ability to simultaneously command two crises. I think with the shutdown, and how it's been affecting his image and how it's been affecting the party as a whole, I think they realize that this is bad for them, and Americans really are sort of placing the blame squarely on them, despite attempts to try to, place it on Obama or play games with the World War II memorial or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is going to be a move that they're going to try again with the debt ceiling. Considering
is there a way
how worse it could get?
Is there a way that they could raise the debt ceiling and then still keep the government closed?
That's possible.
That is interesting. So essentially you disagree with Rand Paul, who, his open mic moment this week, essentially saying that they think they're winning this in the media. You're again,
winning.
Yeah, you're again in the belly of the beast. You're often a guest on Fox News shows. Do you think that they are winning this in the media? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell because I see polls going each way as far as whether Americans blame the Republicans or whether Americans blame President Obama for so-called, not negotiating. Are they winning?
From what I've seen, it looks like in most polls there is a slight majority who blame the Republicans for this. And at the same time, though, there are more Americans who blame President Obama than Americans who blamed President Clinton back when this was the last time around. But you also have to keep in mind that there are a large portion of Americans who will blame President Obama if they get a flat tire on the highway or whatnot. So I'm not necessarily surprised that we're seeing less than stellar poll numbers in terms of that. But I think in terms of the American public who can be persuaded, who are open to, collecting facts and, who really could change your votes down the road come 2014 or whatnot, I think they are seeing pretty clearly that this is the Republicans at fault. And I think a lot of them are also kind of detecting the weird games that they're playing with the World War II memorial, since, this is sort of a new environment where a lot of those arguments can really be poked pretty heavily with holes on the internet within a matter of hours. And, it's harder to mislead people these days, I guess.
Yeah, it really is interesting. I want to shift gears for just a second because I am lucky enough to be friends with you on Facebook, and the mind reels over how much fun it must have been to shoot giant junkyard robots with a pumpkin cannon. Can you please just explain to our audience the awesome event that you took part in yesterday?
I'm from the West Coast, so I, haven't really been out to many farms for a corn maze type event, but that's what me and some friends did yesterday. We went to Lawyers Corn Maze in Thurston, Maryland, and I was delighted to find out that you could pay about $6 to shoot a pumpkin at a giant transformer model that they made out of spare junkyard parts. Several of those. And that was just great.
Justin, I have to say, you just earned, even though you're from Southern California, you earned some redneck points for that.
Fantastic.
Yes, we were checking out those pictures on Facebook and just delighted, wishing. I have to say, I was
Danielle
a little
wants
jealous.
to go now.
Yes,
like seriously, after the show.
That looks like so much fun. What better way to get into the Halloween spirit than shooting pumpkin cannons? I know it's completely. I know it's completely off, the political topic, but how often do you get to talk about something like that on radio? I mean, how often do you get to say those words? Shooting giant robots with pumpkin cannons. That's not a phrase you hear on radio very often.
Not enough. I don't get enough chances to mention that.
No, Justin, I really appreciate you joining us as always. So your prediction is what on the government shutdown, that this is going to be over, or that they're going to raise the debt ceiling and keep the government shut down? Any predictions there?
I think it's going to last for another 2 weeks, and then tensions will essentially boil over. I think we're going to likely see a schism within the GOP over this, more so than we've already seen. I think we may actually see some, powerful moderate voices rising up at the end of the day. But I've been known to be wrong before, and I think I may be having too optimistic of a view. So that's my main fear.
Well,
at least you weren't as optimistic as me, who said there wasn't going to be a shutdown. So I was completely wrong, which I need to broadcast. I was wrong. So, and you were right. So I'm hoping you're right on this one. And maybe there would be a good benefit of shutting down the government if the GOP splits in half. Finally.
Yes, absolutely. And federal workers would have more time to shoot pumpkin cannons.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I mean, that really was a lot of attention, and it made me forget that I wanted to shut down the government. So there we go. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Justin, thank you as always. We love
Shoot
talking
some pumpkin
to you.
cannons at Congress.
Yeah,
I am not advocating any type of assault on Congress. It was a joke.
Thanks. Justin Duckham of the Talk Radio News Service and robot pumpkin shooter extraordinaire. Come on, you don't get to say those words on radio every day.
You can say them every day. They just wouldn't make any sense. It would be in context.
I'm so jealous. Sure. We have to go shoot pumpkin cannons.
Okay, we'll go.
Yes. Yes. Thanks to Justin Duckham, one of our great friends and an amazing reporter for the Talk Radio News Service. Check it out at talkradionews.com. Follow him on Twitter at jduckham. You may even get some pictures of pumpkin cannons on his Twitter feed. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we will be back with more, so stick around.
It is smooth, cool, and oh so sophisticated.
I'll just stick with my beer.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Police called and broke the bad news to Charles. His
personal and financial information was found on an identity thief's computer disk. Nervous and confused, Charles called LifeLock, the industry leader in identity theft protection. LifeLock went into action, uncovering multiple fraudulent credit applications the identity thief was trying to open in his name. LifeLock shut them down and helped him restore his good name and credit. Charles found out the hard way that identity theft is a global crime, a crime that's become so complex you simply can't fight it alone. Your personal and financial information is everywhere. Don't wait for a call from the police before you take action. Visit lifelock.com now or call and mention promo code AWARE to get a special 10% discount. Call 1-800-496-2040. 800-496-2040. 800-496-2040. See lifelock.com for details. Network does not cover all transactions and scope may vary.
Are you a coffee drinker? Do you need to cut down on those sugary coffee creamers? Cocoa Complete transforms your coffee into an incredible health booster without adding any sugar or fat. Simply add one delicious scoop of Cocoa Complete to your coffee and you'll be in guilt-free cafe mocha heaven. But Cocoa Complete is more than your new favorite coffee companion. It's actually good for your health and your waistline because Cocoa Complete has fat-burning properties and helps promote a healthy metabolism to support an effective weight loss program. The secret is Cocoa Complete's blend of pure cocoa bean extract plus other natural ingredients like green tea to make a delicious, chocolatey, low-calorie coffee sweetener that can help you lose weight. Get started right away with a free 15-day trial of Cocoa Complete. That's 15 days of support for burning fat and boosting metabolism with Cocoa Complete for free. Just pay shipping and handling. Just call 800-513-6794. That's 800-513-6794. 800-513-6794.
Attention men, if you're urinating more often or waking up at night to urinate, New Vitality wants to send you a free bottle of their best-selling supplement, Super Beta Prostate. Super Beta has an ingredient shown to reduce the urge to urinate and reduce waking at night to go. New Vitality has already shipped over 7 million bottles, and they're ready to send you a free bottle today.
I used to have to get up 2-3 times a night. Now, maybe once, if at all.
Now, with Super Beta, I find that I can comfortably get to my destination without the concern of this uncontrollable urge to want to use the bathroom.
One of the main benefits of Super Beta Prostate is that I didn't have to go to the bathroom 3 times in the middle of the night.
If you're a man who's urinating more often or waking at night to go, it's your turn to try a free bottle of Super Beta Prostate. You only pay shipping and handling. For details, call 1-800-939-3427. That's 1-800-939-3427. Call 1-800-939-3427.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-330-8537. 1-800-330-8537. That's 1-800-330-8537. 1-800-330-8537.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Well, welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you're checking us out. SoFlo Radio, We Act Radio, or maybe hanging out in the chat room with us over at TalkingLeft.com. Again, sorry no video today. We tried. Three times.
The funny thing is there'll be video after the show.
Yes.
Because it is recording.
Yes, it's just not broadcasting.
Not broadcasting. And it could be a YouTube.
We'll figure it out. We're new to this whole live YouTube stuff.
And it wouldn't be a Talking Left without a technological update.
That's right. That's right.
we actually are in tune in all that. We keep adding things each week, and then something else breaks.
Yeah, but we'll get there. And we appreciate you wherever you're hanging out with us.
Thank you.
And we appreciate when Fox News gets suckered by...
They are suckers by definition.
Yes,
but when we have
by spoof videos and spoof stories. It's like, like when McConnell staffers are quoting The Onion, that kind of just goody joy. I can't believe that just happened, and it's awesome.
And then we get to play it and make fun of them and mock them.
It happened again.
Yeah, so we were talking about the World War II memorials being shut down, and then remember Reince Priebus repeat came out and said the RNC is going to pay for the security, and yay, God bless America, I wrap myself in the flag, Republicans are the best.
Right.
BS. Well, there was a story put up by a parody news site that, like the RNC did for the World War II memorials, that Barack Obama, out of his pocket, was going to keep the International Museum of Muslim Cultures open.
And they
wow, and that
bought
is
it.
catnip.
Yes, catnip for
Absolute
Republicans.
catnip. Here it is.
We saw what happened with the World War II memorial this week. You remember when a couple members of Congress came down there with some of the members of the Great Generation to try to go to this open-air memorial, this World War II memorial. And some park rangers were saying, you can't come in here. I'm sorry, you can't come in here. Well, now they're adding a wire around the outside of this thing to make sure that people don't try to break through. This happened last night on Greta. Take a listen.
I don't want to hear Greta. Come on, get to the point.
We're going to break that down.
They're not going to stop you.
Greta's
no way.
been moved.
Nothing else did.
What do you make of this fence around the World War II memorial with a sign that says closed?
What a bunch of...
Yeah.
I was on Greta's.
What I really think.
Go ahead.
No, don't go ahead.
Unconscionable, unbelievable that they would pull this kind of crap on people like us.
Now, bear in mind, folks, this is infuriating. Think about these brave men who stormed the beaches of Normandy, right, on D-Day, to try to get into France and stop the horrible atrocities that were unfolding in Europe.
Come on.
You can't even go to the cemeteries that are now in Normandy, in France, because those cemeteries, the United States cemeteries in France, are also shut down. Our government shutdown has also, so if they wanted to fly here to Normandy to see where their fellow comrades had died on the beaches of Normandy, those are shut down.
How can you shut down a cemetery or a park? It costs nothing to keep a piece of open land open. It
nothing.
Really?
That's your libertarian
nothing to
Tucker
keep the World
Carlson.
War II Veterans Memorial.
Really? Nothing.
The only
Nothing.
reason they're doing this is to make people suffer. It's appalling.
Come on, get
the
to the
government
good
is
stuff.
acting as your enemy. Has this ever happened before? I've never seen anything like this.
Well, and the Republican National Committee is offering to pay for it, to keep it open, so that the veterans,
So they're offering to pay nothing
from Honor
for
Flight are going to be able to go and see this.
Here it is.
Because who did it honor? It honored them. It really doesn't seem fair, especially we're going to talk a little bit later in the show too about some things that are continuing to be funded. And President Obama has offered to pay out of his own pocket for the Museum of Muslim Culture, out of his own pocket. Yet it's the Republican National Committee who's paying for this, and we're going to be talking to Reince Priebus coming up in the show about that as well.
All right, well, let us know what you think about that. Coming up.
You know what I think about that?
Yeah, let us know what you think
You
about
just
that.
got suckered.
Yeah, pretty much. Essentially, if it talks about Obama and Muslim culture, you guys will believe it no matter what. So it's ridiculous.
That was awesome.
And first of all, I have an issue. I said this earlier in the show. I appreciate our veterans. I hate war, but I appreciate those who dedicate their lives to this country. However, I do not think that their memorial should be funded before people are getting their WIC benefits, before,
If you're going to shut down the government, shut down the government.
Right.
But also, that is so libertarian, what Tucker Carlson said.
Yeah.
What does it cost? It's an open piece of land. It doesn't cost anything. And that is so untrue. I mean, but they want people to think that the government doesn't cost, those types of things don't cost anything. There's no insurance, there's no security, there's no upkeep, there's no taxes. I mean, of course, they don't pay themselves taxes. Just the upkeep and the security.
The war memorial
Insurance.
built itself. You didn't know? It just materialized out of hope and love of America.
Mm-hmm. So
right.
That was amazing. I think that was the more interesting part of that. Tucker Carlson saying, doesn't cost anything. Doesn't cost anything.
See, you don't need government.
Don't need it at all.
No, absolutely. We can all live in a libertarian paradise.
Well, let's make John Boehner's district into a libertarian paradise.
I think we should. I think maybe then we would get somewhere on this whole debt ceiling debate. We have lots more in store for you guys today. We're going to be giving you the Supreme Court preview. There is a lot of big cases coming up this term, and we need to be aware of them and be following them and understand the impact that they have. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle Enchano, and we'll be back with a SCOTUS preview on Red Sunday. Stick around.
This is going to be fun.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
It's Tuesday, October 1, 2013.
Let me repeat this. It does not have to happen.
Government shutdown palooza begins, and it affects a lot of green stuff.
Smokey Bear, beware.
It's Yosemite National Park's 123rd birthday, but Yosemite's now closed too. Florida sues Georgia over water. India builds the world's largest solar plant. Plus,
BP says the number is about 103 million gallons. The federal government's experts say it's closer to 176 million.
BP back in court over Gulf oil disaster.
All of those disasters and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Maybe I'm just one of the few people. I'm just not... This doesn't impact... me mentally.
Oh, Sean Hannity, now you're just trolling to be in our snarky comment section, aren't you? Yep, well done. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, speaking of trolling, I got into a bit of a Twitter fight yesterday with Fox News dolt Eric Bolling, who called me a D-bag, by the way, because I corrected him. He said on air that Arctic ice was at a record size this year, and of course I corrected him and said, no, actually it's the 6th lowest all-time on the satellite record. So he called me a D-bag and a troll, and he blocked me on the Twitter.
He blocked you for facts?
He blocked me for facts. You can read the exchange between Eric Bolling and myself at bradblog.com. But yes, while Fox may be a fact-free zone, the Green News Report is not. So what facts do you have for us today, Desi Doyen?
The Tea Party showdown becomes government shutdown.
Putting the American people's hard-earned progress at risk is the height of irresponsibility.
The United States federal government officially shut down on October 1st after congressional Republicans failed to extort concessions from the Obama administration. President Obama on Monday listed just a handful of the vital energy and environment services now shut down.
NASA will shut down almost entirely. Business owners would see delays in raising capital, seeking infrastructure permits, or rebuilding after Hurricane Sandy. Tourists will find every one of America's national parks and monuments, from Yosemite to the Smithsonian, the Statue of Liberty, immediately closed.
Tuesday is Yosemite National Park's 123rd birthday, but national parks are shut down. Yet, oil and gas drilling is not shut down. That continues on public lands.
So the oil and gas drilling that is going on inside the national forests and so forth, that continues?
Oh, yes.
But we can't go see them.
Right.
Got it.
Also shut down the Environmental Protection Agency and its enforcement of clean water and clean air laws.
Well, what do we need clean water and clean air for anyway?
NOAA and NASA and their weather predictions also closed, although the National Weather Service does remain open. No cleanup at Superfund sites. No disease monitoring or flu program from the Centers for Disease Control. No coal mine safety inspections. No food safety inspections from the FDA.
What do we need food safety inspection for? Let's have a little fair and balance here. Shall we, Sarah Palin?
This is a pinprick. It is not the end of the world if there is a partial government shutdown.
There you go. Get over it, food hugger.
On the good side, oil price futures have dropped on the expectation of an economic slowdown. In other non-shutdown news...
You mean the rest of the world doesn't stop because of the government shutdown?
That's right. The BP Gulf oil spill trial starts its second phase in New Orleans this week to determine state, local, and federal damages and fines based on the total amount of oil that was released and whether BP acted with gross negligence or just regular negligence in compromising safety over speed.
So were they really negligent or were they really, really negligent? That's the fight here?
Yes, plaintiffs' lawyers accuse BP of repeatedly lying to officials about the flow rate of oil from the broken well. And oil is still impacting the Gulf, reports the Associated Press.
3 years later,
damage is still evident.
It's shadowing the marsh. It's killing this marsh and the few mangrove trees that are in this area.
In U.S. water wars, Florida is suing Georgia over water. Florida is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to stop Georgia from taking too much water from Florida's upstream water supply. But there is some good news. India has announced plans to build the world's largest solar power plant that dwarfs anything constructed in the world so far. It is 4 times bigger than the 10 largest U.S. solar plants combined.
Impossible. Fox News told me solar is just a boutique energy. It'll never go anywhere. For much more on that and the other lies that Fox News tells you on a regular basis, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Don't forget, you can download us anytime via iTunes, Stitcher, or TuneIn Radio. Find us and like us on the Facebook and follow us 24/7 on the Twitters at Green News Report. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
Broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., this is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you're checking us out. We appreciate you hanging out with us. So, in this whole government shutdown news, we keep hearing about the debt ceiling.
Yeah, the big deal.
Yes.
The big kahuna.
And it is a very big deal. Shane, you and I were talking about the debt ceiling and how this is being used as a tool to hold the nation hostage. It's the reason behind the sequester and so many of these really, harmful pieces of legislation.
And the GOP rhetoric that, Republicans are good on the economy and Democrats are, which is nonsense. We've cut the deficit in over half, and Reagan tripled the debt, Bush doubled it.
Yeah,
so
and the
enough.
debt ceiling was raised 18 times under Reagan.
Right.
Just saying.
And the fundamental understanding of what the debt ceiling is, why it's there, it's been contorted into a weapon. Something that was, think of shackles that were undone, now is being used as a sword.
Right. You were explaining this to me. You researched the history of the debt ceiling. And I was really interested to hear about what it was really all about. I mean, even with as engrossed as in politics as I am, I didn't know what you explained to me.
Because when it comes right down to it, we didn't really hear about the debt ceiling very much at all.
Right.
Even during Bush. I mean, I remember writing an article for Currenti Wire about the debt ceiling being quietly one line, just boop, increased, no problem. And that's the way it always was. There used to be a time in our country where we didn't have a debt ceiling.
Right.
We issued treasuries, bonds, things like that. We borrowed money. Our federal government borrowed money. But the way Congress used to do it for the first 120 years, 130 years or so, was a lot like a small town does, or not even a small town, a city, a town, a village. Let's say your local community wants to build a gym, a community center. What you do is you say, we want to build a community center. Here's how we're going to pay for it. We're going to issue X number of bonds. And at whatever percent, and et cetera.
Right.
That's the way Congress used to do things. We want to build X post office. We're going to issue.
Right. If that post office is going to cost $1 million, we're going to issue $1 million in bonds, and we're going to build that post office.
For every single appropriation, there was a funding.
Right.
And that worked for a while. But then we had World War I.
1917,
and inside of the bill called the Second Liberty Bond Act of 1917 is when we had our first debt ceiling. The debt ceiling was not meant to limit the Congress or the Treasury, I'm sorry. Congress was essentially saying, we've got this world war. It's going to cost a bunch of money. And instead of sitting here and micromanaging every single expenditure for this war, we're going to give you X number of dollars. You raise it however you want, spend it however you want, but we got to win this war. So we're going to free you up. We're going to say, you Treasury, do what you have to do. The shackles are taken off. The Congress is not going to mess with what you're doing. The debt ceiling itself was a liberty, freeing them up.
So it was actually saying, instead of doing this the way we have been, which is raising every dollar that you're about to spend. We don't know what this is going to cost. We've never been in a world war before. This is a huge deal.
And it's complex.
Right.
For us to sit here and, okay, these tanks, these planes, and let's leave it to the people who the Defense Department's going to have to, or Department of War, whatever it was at that point, it's going to have to build these things. They just go straight to the Treasury and say, issue these bonds.
Right.
Yeah, be done with it.
So it was actually a way of freeing up the Treasury to spend more money, and they raised the debt ceiling to a point saying, okay, well, we're going to put this way up high so that you have liberty to spend what you need.
And it was essentially also there's we don't like giving blank checks, so we're going to give you a limit. Don't go. But not even that. If you have to spend more than that, come back to us and we'll give you another one. And that's what happened from that point on. Come back to us. Okay, here's some more. We have a huge economy. We bring in lots of taxes. We have lots of our GDP is very high, and we're turning this stuff over, and the oil is there, so let's put some more oil in it and keep the gears running. And they just keep doing this as the population grows, as the GDP grows. It's not a big deal. Every person who owns, just about every person who owns a home in this country has debt that's greater than their income and their economic activity for a year.
Right. But we trust them to pay it just like other nations should trust our nation.
And that's what we're dealing with is trust.
Right.
But they've turned this around now saying they want that power back. They want to micromanage, and they want to, because these are deficit hawks who want the government not to work well. They don't want the government doing these things, so they starve the government so that then it can go to private companies.
And it all started back in 1995 when Newt Gingrich was
Dick Armey and John Boehner.
Yes, but Newt Gingrich was upset that President Clinton made him ride in the back of a plane.
Yeah.
And so I am not kidding. You can look this up. Newt Gingrich was upset.
Yeah.
And so he held the entire nation hostage back in the 90s and said, Clinton, you're going to give me what I want because I was disrespected, or we're not going to raise the debt ceiling.
Right.
And thus, we got this hostage-taking stance on the debt ceiling. He set the precedent there over not being respected.
Right. So the Republicans did it to Clinton. Democrats did not do it. I don't care what you hear from Neil Cavuto on Fox. Yes, there were some Democrats who voted against the debt ceiling, but they did that as a show of what they felt. It was a conscious vote, but they knew that there was enough votes to pass the debt ceiling increase.
Right, and it was primarily against opposing the Bush's war.
It was a vote against the war, but knowing that the debt ceiling was going to be increased. They never said we're not going to increase the debt ceiling.
Right.
They said we're going to vote against it, but there's enough votes here. It was Gingrich during Clinton, and now Boehner during Obama.
And it's about the same darn thing.
Of course it is.
It's about Republicans feeling that they're not respected enough. Well, guess what?
And the amount of respect they need, it has to rise to the level of the rhetoric, because what they've done is they've backed themselves into a corner. They said, we want. Well, what do you want now? I don't know.
Yeah.
Just something.
That's exactly. Representative Marlon Stutzman told reporters, we are not going to be disrespected. We have to get something out of this, and I don't know what that even is. They're saying, I don't know what I want, but I want it now.
Right.
And it's about the same thing. It's not even about the rhetoric. It's not even about winning in the media. It's about feeding their egos because they need to feel like the most important guy in the room. And just like Newt Gingrich, and we should be embarrassing them over it, just like they did to Gingrich. I want to see a Newsweek cover with John Boehner crying on as a big baby. Come on, they wouldn't even have to draw the cartoon. They could show a real picture of John Boehner crying.
Yeah.
You don't hold the government hostage.
The debt ceiling thing. This is and I'm sure there are smart people around these. Maybe not around Ted Cruz, because he thinks he's the smartest guy ever. Around John Boehner saying, if you do this, the dollar is going to, there's going to be inflation through the roof. The dollar is going to plummet in terms of value. We're not going to be able to, credit's going to seize up. And it only takes a day for decades of tragedy in our economy, in the world economy. And I think they know this. So just like we said, we were talking in the first hour about how Republicans say different things to the public than they say behind closed doors, and they're shocked that Democrats say the same thing behind closed doors that they say in public.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that behind closed doors, they're saying something different than they're saying in public.
I certainly hope so, but I have to say, I don't think They are. I think that they are so afraid of being primaried from the right that they're afraid that more of these Tea Party crazies are going to get into Congress and take this over even worse than they have right now, that they would honestly put our nation and the world's economy at risk over their own egos. I really honestly fear that.
They breach the debt ceiling, their jobs aren't going to be worth a damn.
I don't think they care. I don't think they understand it. I hate to say it, and I don't think they're smart enough to understand the real damage that they're going to cause here. I don't think they can comprehend it.
Or they just don't believe it.
Right.
Just like Tucker Carlson doesn't believe that it costs anything to run a national park.
And you have Rand Paul out there, the king of the Tea Party, saying it's fine. It's fine that the debt ceiling is just about getting a balanced budget.
Right.
I mean, he's already out there positioning to say...
When we were talking about the debt, history of the debt, you said, right, it had to do with trust in the government that they're going to pay what they owe.
Right.
And when you'll get a balanced budget, but no one's going to trust the United States to pay their bills.
It's scary.
You can't just, we're going to pay the interest.
When we were speaking...
This isn't a student loan.
Right. When we were speaking with Justin from Talk Radio News, he says that the Tea Party will have less leverage as we get closer to this debt ceiling debate. I am not sure I agree with him. I feel like we are dealing with actual economic terrorists here. I know that people use that term as rhetoric, but,
using fear to get your way.
Right. But when you suicide bomber that you're trying not to, don't shoot the hostages because, you'd feel bad that they died. Well, if he's about to blow himself up, why would he care?
Right.
And I think we're dealing with the same kind of people. As much as it sounds harmful to the people of their districts and as much as people would suffer, I can't help but think that the only way we're going to get out of this is if we get down and dirty in the mud with the damn Republicans saying, you know what? Fine, you don't want the government to run? You don't get any government until your voters, until your constituents realize how important this government really is, how important it is that dollar you're spending means $1, that the economy around the world actually trusts that dollar, that piece of paper in your hand is worth anything.
Yeah, it's a note.
Right.
I mean, the value of $1 is only as strong as the government that supports it.
Right.
And for our entire history, our government has honored that, and the world has recognized that. That collapses the minute you pass the debt ceiling.
I don't think that they care. I don't think
that piece of paper doesn't mean what it has meant for our entire history.
Yeah. Guess what? Those billions of dollars that you're fighting for, the people you really represent, the Koch brothers and the billionaires, those billions that you're collecting and that you want to collect more of aren't going to be worth a damn when you breach the debt ceiling.
That's if they're in American dollars. It'd be interesting to see where they're moving money.
And I'd really like to know who's hedging their bets against the government.
Yeah. Remember, Eric Cantor last time was shorting the United States T-bills.
Right. I'm sorry. If that is the granddaddy of all insider trading, if you ask me.
Yeah. And that is seditious.
Yeah.
Sorry. I to throw those words around again.
I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know. Because as they're saying that it's wrong for the government to spend any more money, at the same time, and we're going to get into this next, the very leaders of their party are saying they want even more money personally. This is an amazing story that we're about to touch on. If you haven't heard it yet, you may want to sit down because Mitch McConnell is up to something with the Supreme Court.
Oh, you are such a tease.
I'm going to tease. People are going to have to stick around to listen to hear exactly what it is. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. You do not want to miss the next story. Stick around.
It reflects the drama of the human experience, and isn't that the essence of art?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
With your Working Virginia update, I'm Doug Cunningham. As it looks for new ways to grow and to overcome the hurdles for workers who want to be in unions, AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka says that the key is effectively pursuing an agenda of shared prosperity for all American workers.
In order for workers to succeed, in order for workers to have a voice, they have to have a voice at the workplace, they have to have a voice in the economy, they have to have a voice in American politics. We're trying to do all three of those things. We're trying to create an environment where those workers workers that really want to have a union can have a union. We're trying to create an environment where we join together with our progressive friends to create an economy that doesn't just work for the top 1%, but works for all workers. We call it shared prosperity.
Working Virginia Update, produced by Workers Independent News. I'm Doug Cunningham.
This update made possible by the Office and Professional Employees International Union, ensuring fair treatment, fair wages, and benefits for thousands of working Virginians. Online at opeiu.org.
I'm Jim Cook here at our Sam Adams Brewery, tasting this year's Sam Adams Oktoberfest. Hit it, boys! Who wants some fresh Oktoberfest? This year's Oktoberfest is rich with sweet flavors like caramel and toffee.
That is really good.
Those unique flavors come from the 5 roasted malts in Sam Adams Oktoberfest. Ah, delicious. We only brew Sam Adams Oktoberfest for 2 months, so grab one before it's too late.
Then I definitely want more Oktoberfest.
Boston Beer Company, Boston, Mass. Save responsibly.
Mondays are no good. Mondays make you use your alarm clock again and sit in a cubicle. But Tuesdays, Tuesdays are awesome. Why? Because that's when Wing Tuesdays happen at Buffalo Wild Wings. Every Tuesday, you can get specially priced wings, spun fresh in your choice of any of their over 20 sauces and seasonings. You want mild? They got mild. You want Asian zing? They got Asian zing. So when next Monday comes around, remind it how much better Tuesdays are. But I'm sure it already knows. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
Jay Farner here with Quicken Loans. Here are 2 simple words that should make you reconsider waiting to buy a home. Buying power. Let's say you can afford a monthly mortgage payment, including principal and interest, of around $1,350. With today's rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage of 4.5%, APR 4.53%, that payment could support a $265,000 mortgage. But if you wait and rates tick up to around 6%, that same $1,350 mortgage payment, including principal and interest, may only be able to support a $215,000 mortgage. That's $50,000 worth of home that you're missing out on by waiting. That's buying power. And for 3 years in a row now, J.D. Power & Associates has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Give Quicken Loans a call today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com and maximize your buying power.
For J.D. Power & Associates award information, visit jdpower.com. Payment example excludes taxes and insurance calls. For cost information, equal housing lender license in all 50 states and NMLS number 3030.
As many as 7.5 million Americans have psoriasis, and many of them suffer in silence, hiding their itching, flaking, and discomfort. If you're living with psoriasis, your new life begins now when you call for a risk-free trial of Ceraderm. Ceraderm provides fast topical relief of skin psoriasis. Ceraderm helps to stop the itching, irritation, redness, and flaking caused by your psoriasis. Even if you've tried everything else, even if you've suffered for years, imagine living without discomfort and embarrassment, and without wearing long clothes to hide your psoriasis. We're so confident you'll love your skin after using Ceraderm that we're offering it risk-free. But you have to call now.
Call 1-800-516-4382. That's 1-800-516-4382. Try Ceraderm risk-free. Call 1-800-516-4382. That's 1-800-516-4382.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. So, as of Monday, the Supreme Court is back in session, and one of
the court is open,
yes,
even though the government's closed. Interesting, isn't it?
Well, the kings and queens want their attention despite a government shutdown.
Yeah.
As does Senator Mitch McConnell.
This is amazing.
One of the biggest cases that is before the court, because as we know, campaign finance is something that bleeds into all of the other issues. We've seen the effect.
Dominates.
Right. We've seen the effect of Citizens United.
Right.
Well,
if you don't have unlimited amounts of money buying people like Ted Cruz in different seats like that, you don't have a government shutdown. You aren't flirting with the debt ceiling.
Right. And McCutcheon v. FEC, Federal Elections Commission, is one of the biggest cases this term.
It was Citizens United v. FEC.
Right.
Just FYI.
This is essentially Citizens United 2. This case, McCutcheon, wants to remove,
Sean McCutcheon,
Yes.
businessman from Alabama.
right, wants to remove the individual campaign donation limits in an election cycle. Right now, it's limited to about 120,000. As of 2014, it'll be 123,000. And McCutcheon says that it's fine. You can have those limits on a particular candidate, but I should be able to give as much as I want to parties, to super PACs, to, groups.
Sure.
And
Because
there's-
I'm a person, I'm an individual person, and you are limiting my free speech in McCain-Feingold, and that's a violation of the First Amendment.
Right.
And based on Citizens United, guess what? He's
It'll
going to win.
Probably win.
So now, not only, and then you get to extrapolate that out. Sean McCutcheon's a person, but you know what? So is Koch Industries.
According to our Supreme Court, yes.
So you put McCutcheon the way it's probably going to go. I'm sorry, they haven't even argued yet, but you can tell the way it's going to go. With Citizens United, unlimited. The sky is the limit.
And none other than Senator Mitch McConnell, Senator, will be helping to argue that these campaign contribution limits should be banned. They should be done with.
So, and usually there should be. Okay, it freaks me out. So I have to start over. When you go to the Supreme Court, you have a case in controversy. You have one side that says, I should win. The other side says, no, you shouldn't.
Right.
I should win.
Right.
One side is McCutcheon. The other side is the FEC, the executive branch. Individual, executive branch. And a lot of times there's amicus briefs. Friends of the court, who have an interest but aren't a party, and they'll file a brief.
And many senators, lawmakers have filed briefs on behalf of one side or another in many cases.
And then there's situations, we had the gay rights cases, same-sex marriage cases, BLAG, the bipartisan legislative advocacy group or whatever it was.
Which was cover for lawmakers who want to discriminate against gay people.
But they were supporting a law. They were in there saying, we've enacted a law and we're here to defend that law.
Right.
And it wasn't John Boehner walking in saying, I am going to argue this. That's why it's so incredible that Mitch McConnell, the individual, is going to go in. And not only is he going to go in and argue personally, but he's going to argue against a law enacted by the very group that he's part of.
Right. Essentially, McConnell is going to speak in front of the court. He is going to give oral arguments stating that money is speech and that campaign contribution limits are an unconstitutional burden on free speech and that the court should give contribution limits a higher level of scrutiny.
Because it's political speech.
Than it has in the past.
It's not just speech, it's political speech.
Right. Essentially, if McCutcheon goes down, if this law is struck and campaign contribution limits are struck, yes, there will still be, at least until that case comes before the court, there will be still limits on how much somebody can give to an individual donor. However, Sean McCutcheon, billionaires like him, could walk over to the RNC, give him a $500,000 check or larger.
And then they can distribute it.
And then they can distribute it as they see fit, even if, hey, it happens to flow all to one candidate.
Right.
It's essentially permitting money laundering
yeah,
by political donors.
Unlimited.
Right. We thought Citizens United was bad, and it was.
This just makes it worse. It augments it.
Right.
And Mitch McConnell wants to go in front of the Supreme Court and say, I'm up for election. I want as much money as I can possibly get.
Right. 120,000 from one person just isn't enough.
No, there's not that many billionaires. Think about it. The very rich in this country is getting to be a smaller and smaller and smaller group. We have to get more out of them. Think about it. It goes right along with the concentration of wealth.
Right.
We don't have as many rich people as we used to. We have super, super rich people, and they think about it. As they gut the middle class, because the middle class can't contribute anymore.
But the scariest part is, I don't see how this is going to be thrown out. I don't see how it's going to be ruled in favor of the FEC.
No. Well, it's not. Technically, it's in favor of the FEC, who is executing the law that was enacted by Congress. But also think about this. You've got a Supreme Court, the Royals they are, and this is just proof that they are the absolute last word monarchs of this country, because you've got the representative from the Senate arguing against the executive branch. So you have two branches of government. When you have Mitch McConnell and the FEC in there, that's two branches of government.
Right.
Going before one branch of government, and the one branch of government that's supreme, that's going to decide who wins, the Supreme Court.
Right.
That is a problem.
It is a big problem. To me, it sounds like a constitutional crisis.
And then when they're done, where do you go if you don't like it?
Nowhere.
You're screwed.
You better pass a constitutional amendment.
You got to go back to the people.
Right. And we know how difficult that is.
With unlimited money coming into the process.
Yeah. I mean, our politicians are already bought and paid for. This is essentially just saying they want a higher price. Yeah. You know, Ted Cruz.
We want to raise.
Ted Cruz wants more than the billions he's already getting in order to hold the nation hostage. He's not satisfied with the price he's getting.
A little more.
And this, believe it or not, is only one of the many important cases that are going to be before the court this term. You know, we covered them all last Supreme Court term, and we're going to do the same as this year goes out. But Ian Millhiser of Think Progress did a great write-up about the important cases that we need to watch, and he's going to join us next to cover as many as we can in one segment. We'll be right back on Talking Left. You're listening to Danielle and Shano, and stick around.
They're messing with my shows!
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Thomas Carlyle called economics the dismal science, but he was only half right. Dismal, yes, but a science, no. It's more like religions, where reality is shaped by belief or blind faith. And in the case of free market zealots, it can turn into a cult. Thus, we see them pointing these days to the dazzling light of the soaring stock market, proclaiming fervently that Wall Street's spectacular rise from the ashes of the Great Recession is proof from the god of Mammon that these are boom times. Lo, the magic of the marketplace is upon us. No, it's just the wizardry of the Fed. For 5 years, America's central bank regulators have been funneling 2 massive subsidies into Wall Street banks and giant corporations in an ungodly effort to keep them flush, while praying that they might use these government windfalls to create a job or two. The first subsidy essentially amounts to giving $85 billion every month to big banks. Yes, $85 billion. The idea is that this capital will then be channeled into investments that nourish our grassroots economy. In practice, however, bankers are putting it into gimmicky high-risk investment schemes that create nothing, into buyouts to expand their already too-big-to-fail empires, and into even heftier paychecks for themselves. The second subsidy is the Fed's relentless policy of artificially holding interest rates close to zero. This has severely punished middle-class retirees who count on getting interest incomes from their savings. But it has been a blessing from on high for huge corporations wanting to buy out their competitors or, in a totally unproductive bit of marketplace voodoo, to buy out themselves. This is Jim Hightower saying, meanwhile, the Fed's tinkle-down monetary policy has produced a truly dismal level of job creation and a hellishly wide chasm of inequality.
If you like these feisty pops of populism that Hightower zings out on the airwaves, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter provides the in-depth lowdown on what the greed heads of Wall Street and the boneheads of Washington are doing to us behind the scenes. With Hightower's saucy Texas humor and truth-telling populist perspective, the Lowdown literally can lift you up. And get this, you can have the Lowdown delivered to your mailbox or email each month for only $15 a year. Yes, 12 issues, only $15. Check it out. HightowerLowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. There are now at least 18 Republican U.S. House members who say they would vote to pass a clean government funding resolution with no strings attached. That means if Speaker John Boehner would just move to an up-or-down vote on the House floor, a majority of members would vote to reopen and refund the government. The federal government shutdown is costing the U.S. economy at least $300 million a day. That's according to IHS Incorporated, a Massachusetts-based global market research firm. The company says that annualized economic growth in the fourth quarter that was forecast to be 2.2% will drop to 2% in a week-long shutdown. A 21-day shutdown like that seen in 1995 would cut growth by 0.9 to 1.4%. Government spending is felt throughout the economy, and a continued government shutdown threatens investor and business confidence in ways that could seriously hurt overall economic growth. SEIU has mounted a nationwide campaign to help the uninsured navigate the Affordable Care Act. Jesse Russell reports.
The Service Employees International Union is launching a nationwide effort to help people use exchanges to enroll in healthcare. The primary focus of the campaign is enrolling the Latino population, which currently has the highest uninsured rate in the country. In addition to SEIU members knocking on doors, the organization has launched a multifaceted media outreach effort. That effort includes a video series explaining, in both English and Spanish, how to enroll in the basics of the law.
Just fill out one application and you can shop for the right plan for you and your family online,
compare plans and what they cost,
find out if you're eligible for financial assistance that can help save you money.
Starting October 1st, health insurance became available to millions of people for the first time through the healthcare marketplace.
More than 500 parents, students, teachers, and community activists from around the country are meeting in Los Angeles this weekend for a conference to endorse common principles for quality public education. The conference includes the American Federation of Teachers. Conference attendees will endorse a document called The Principles That Unite Us in the fight against school closings, excessive standardized testing, and austerity and market-based reforms that conference organizers say harms kids. A series of actions around the country will be launched this fall in keeping with the principles of this conference. Even as the government shutdown dominates the news, a group of House Democrats has introduced a comprehensive immigration reform bill based on bipartisan legislation that has already passed the U.S. Senate. AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka says it would fix the immigration system and has widespread support from labor, business, civil, and human rights groups. Trumka says if House Republicans respected the democratic process, this common-sense bill would already be the law of the land. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
I started going cold turkey. Well, at least when I'm in the car.
I know I shouldn't do it, but it's so hard to stop. That's why I hide it from myself, so I won't be tempted.
I used to do it all the time. I stopped by locking it in my glove compartment.
My friend used to do it way too much. Now I turn it off when we're in the car.
My solution is simple. I just don't do it.
There are lots of ways to stop yourself and others from texting and driving. How will you stop? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you're hanging out with us. SoFlo Radio, We Act Radio, or maybe over in the chat room at talkingleft.com. We are very excited to have our next guest, Ian Millhiser, the Justice Editor at thinkprogress.org. You can follow him on Twitter at @iMillhiser. And Ian, you summed up many of the big cases, if not all of the big cases before the Supreme Court next week or next term. We just talked about McCutcheon v. FEC, but if I read this correctly, that is only one of many, many, many important cases we're going to see this term. Am I right on that?
No, it's normally at this point in the term, there are 4, 5, maybe 6 cases that I'm watching very closely to see what happens, and I'm potentially worried about the outcome. This term, there are 13, and McCutcheon is one of the biggest cases, but you've got one or two big abortion cases coming, you've got some big religion cases coming, you've got big race cases coming. So what you're seeing is a lot of these issues that people in the conservative legal movement have cared about for a long time, and the Roberts Court has sort of been taking baby steps towards restricting the law in these areas. Now we've got a rush of all of them, and it looks like they could consolidate a lot of conservative victories very, very quickly this term.
Yeah, while the GOP is essentially telling Obama to be a Republican in order to get the government funded, it seems like the Supreme Court is also doing their bidding. Just to start off, you have a great list over at thinkprogress.org, and we'll put this link up with the blog post, but there's possibly 2 abortion cases coming up: McCullen v. Coakley, not to be confused with McCutcheon, which we just talked about, and Klein v. Oklahoma Coalition for Reproductive Justice. Now, one of those you said, according to your article, may not end up before the court. Do I have that right?
That's right. The Klein case might not reach a decision because of a quirky procedural quirk in the case where they're waiting to hear something back from the Oklahoma Supreme Court before they decide what to do with it. But that case is very important, and that could be potentially the end for meaningful reproductive freedom in this country, depending on how that case comes down. It's a case that deals with sham safety laws. So the Constitution allows laws which protect the safety of women who get abortions, and that's a good thing. You know, we want states to say that you have to have a medical degree before you perform an abortion, for example. But what a lot of states have done is they've enacted sham safety laws, where they claim the law is about safety, but really it's about shutting down clinics. They say that the hallways have to be a certain width in a clinic. They say that doctors have to have some irrelevant credential or they're not allowed to perform an abortion. And these aren't actually safety laws. These are laws that may look like safety laws, but they're really about limiting women's reproductive choices.
Right.
Crime is the first big case to reach the Supreme Court that deals with one of these sham safety laws. It's an Oklahoma law dealing with whether or not doctors can prescribe an abortion pill for off-label use. And if the Supreme Court says that Oklahoma is allowed to enact this one sham safety law, then all of these states like Texas and Virginia that have been passing other sham laws designed to shut down clinics, it's likely those are going to be upheld too. And at that point, the only thing limiting a state from enacting pretty much a total ban on abortion is the creativity of anti-abortion lawmakers.
Right. Essentially, these hallway widening laws or saying that abortion clinics need to have the same certification as an ambulatory surgical center, which we've seen a lot of these type of laws go into place, which are just backdoor ways of making it impossible or extremely difficult for women to have an abortion. And then this McCullen v. Coakley, essentially, it's a lot about women's safety and women's emotional state. If they choose to have an abortion, this is possibly eliminating this buffer zone that's around clinics. Do I have that correct?
That's right. So there's a federal law that gives certain protections to women where there's a zone that protesters are not allowed to go into to harass those women. Massachusetts has an even stronger law than federal law. And the question here is whether or not the Massachusetts law is constitutional. But depending on what the Supreme Court does, they could potentially announce a broad rule that strikes down not just the Massachusetts law, but the federal law as well. And then you're living in a world where in order to get into a clinic, even if you're not going for an abortion, even if you're going for a pap smear or you're going for birth control pills, you have to go through an army of people dressed as the Grim Reaper who will jeer at you and, do who knows what else to you to prevent you from getting to that clinic. And that's a huge disincentive. Every time I go to the doctor, I wouldn't want to have some guy dressed as the Grim Reaper yelling at me.
Right.
And women seeking reproductive services, whether it's an abortion or whether it's a birth control pill, should not have to go through that either.
Absolutely. We spoke a lot before we got you on about McCutcheon v. FEC and the importance of yet another possible campaign finance law. So I'm going to skip over that one. But the next one on your list here is the Town of Greece v. Galloway. And, this is the potential of striking down the separation of church and state, which, you just talked about abortion. Talk about the overwhelming effect that law could have if it was struck down. What do you think on this one?
So in 2005, Justice O'Connor retired from the court. And O'Connor was the leading proponent of the view that government should not be in the business of endorsing religion. So the government can't say, hey, everyone should go out and become a Catholic or a Jew or whatever. And O'Connor was also the fifth vote maintaining that view. She's gone now. And ever since she left, a lot of us have been living in terror that in the absence of Justice O'Connor, her vision that government should not be endorsing particular faiths, they shouldn't be spending money to try to convert people, they shouldn't be taxing me to put up a Ten Commandments monument that I may not want in some town hall. That notion that Justice O'Connor was the champion of is now on life support.
Right.
And there are probably 5 votes to get rid of it on the Supreme Court. This is a case that actually deals with legislative prayer. It deals with whether or not a city legislature is allowed to open with a particular kind of prayer. But what's at stake in the case is whether or not this rule preventing government from endorsing religion is going to stay in effect.
Yeah, and I try my best. I know I slip into this. I try to stay away from the slippery slope arguments, but once you set that precedent of that it's okay for a government to advocate for a certain religion, there are a lot of steps beyond that are very concerning, and it could have a much greater effect than whether or not our lawmakers are simply allowed to open a congressional session with prayer. Am I right on that?
No, that's exactly right. So right now, the fifth vote on the court is probably Justice Kennedy. Justice Kennedy has said that the government is not allowed to coerce people into faith, so the government's not allowed to, apply some kind of pressure on me to get me to adopt a certain religious view, and that's, nice that he thinks that. But there's a whole lot that the government can do that falls within the territory of endorsement. Whether it is putting up religious symbols all over a courthouse and sending a message to people who don't share that faith that they're somehow less welcome in one of the seats of American government, or it could be spending a whole lot of money on faith-based programs that don't necessarily accomplish any meaningful charitable goal. I think it's one thing if there's a church group and the church group wants to feed the homeless, or if the church group wants to provide income support to people who are down in their luck. That's one thing. But if what the church group wants to do is simply try to recruit people into their faith, that's not what my tax dollars should be doing.
Right. Or I have to think that Westboro Baptist Church gets an exemption from property taxes because of pre-exist laws that exist on the books, and I guess just to throw that in there, it just makes me think of it. It's very concerning that that separation is in jeopardy. I just want to remind everybody, we're speaking with Ian Millhiser, the Justice Editor for thinkprogress.org. You can follow him on Twitter at Ian Millhiser. I am looking through right now a great article you put up with Nicole Flato, who is another Justice Editor. Abortion, big money in elections, and 11 other huge cases that the Supreme Court will hear next term. I know we won't have time to cover all of them, so people should check that out to get to see the ones we can't get to. Another one that I know is important to us and important to our listeners is the the one listener, the future of unions, and the case National Labor Relations Board v. Noel Canning. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I have to say, is it just that it could strike down the cases that the NLRB made before people were confirmed, or is there more to that case than what I'm understanding?
So the good news here is that Noel Canning is now a lot less scary than it was several months ago before the board members were confirmed by the Senate. So the history here is that for well over a year, the Republicans in the Senate were filibustering anyone that President Obama nominated to the National Labor Relations Board. And for your listeners that don't know, the NLRB is the only agency in the federal government that can enforce most of federal labor law. So if the NLRB isn't functioning, that means if your employer fires you because you're in a union, there's no one to protect your right. If your employer fires you because they hear two people talking about how they're not happy about their wages and maybe they want to collectively do something about it, there is nothing protecting you without the NLRB. Like, the source of almost all labor and union rights is this National Labor Relations Board. And the Republicans weren't going to confirm anyone to it. Obama recess appointed some folks. And then this lawsuit came about claiming that those recess appointments were invalid. If they are invalid, everything that happened between when those recess appointments were made and when finally the Republicans caved under pressure and agreed to confirm some folks is also invalid. Everything that the NLRB did. And, the good news is since we have now filled those seats, the NLRB can go back and hear those cases again, but the decisions they made, during that period, there's going to be this huge backlog of cases that could potentially be invalidated. And it also raises the risk, what happens if, 2 years from now or 10 years from now, there's a Republican Senate, and they say, well, we're just not going to confirm anyone's NLRB again, and the president and the Supreme Court says the president can't fix it through the recess power. So what's at stake in the Noel Canning case is it makes it so that if the Republicans control either the presidency or the Senate, either one, they could potentially have the power to shut down the only agency that can enforce labor law altogether and leave unionized workers and workers that desperately want to be in a union out in the cold.
And this has the possibility to set the precedent that presidents can't appoint these positions during recess. I'm just curious. I know you have a very good understanding of constitutional law. Isn't it in the Constitution that the president has the power to appoint recess appointments? I mean, how could the Supreme Court rule against this?
Yeah, it's a bizarre argument. So the argument is that the Senate was in recess for almost a month when the president made these recess appointments. The Senate had left, I think, in December, and they weren't going to come back until well into January. So there was a good, solid period of time when the Senate wasn't doing anything. And that's when the president made his recess appointment. And what had happened is during that period of about a month where the Senate wasn't doing anything, the Republicans had insisted that every 3 days someone had to show up and basically gavel the Senate into a sham session. Literally, one senator would arrive, he would hit the gavel once, say the Senate is now in session, hit it again, say the Senate is now closed. The whole thing would take less than 30 seconds. And they claimed that if one senator did this every 3 days, it somehow shut off the president's entire recess appointment power. That's not what I think the Constitution says. That's not what any court had said that it says before Barack Obama became president. In fact, there's a very similar case involving a Bush recess appointee where a federal court of appeals said it doesn't matter how many days the Senate is out. The Senate's out for 1 day. If it's a recess, it's a recess. So you have a theory, a way of reading the Constitution that no one had ever thought of before until Barack Obama became president. And so, like so many other things with this very conservative Supreme Court, you basically have conservative plaintiffs asking the Supreme Court to read the Constitution and find an Obama exemption to the rules and then apply it to this president.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and these are just a few of the cases. I think we got to maybe 4. This docket is essentially like a right-winger's dream: abortion, affirmative action, campaign finance, religion in politics. It goes on and on and on, and people really need to follow Ian Millhiser's post over at Think Progress and keep an eye on this, because this is our democracy, our country, and many of the important rights we value at stake. Ian, thank you so much for helping us understand a few of these cases. Hopefully, as they happen and as we get oral arguments and rulings, you will come back and join us and help us make more sense of them.
No, I'm happy to do that. Thanks for having me. Everyone follow me on Twitter. I'm at iMillhiser.
Absolutely, and we'll put those links up with the blog post after the show. Thanks so much, Ian.
Thank you.
Wow, there really are so many important cases. Those are just 13 of the biggest cases,
right,
and they make your head spin.
Yeah, and on top of it, once they are decided, there's not a lot you can do about it.
Right.
It's done.
That's the scary part.
Yeah.
So please do follow Ian over at thinkprogress.org/justice. You can follow his Twitter at iMillhiser. He will break down these cases as they are heard before the court, and as as we get rulings coming out. He really knows his stuff, and
he probably reserved his seat for Tuesday, which I haven't done yet, and I'm in big trouble.
Well, hopefully they will have some mercy.
I have to go throw myself in the mercy of the court clerk on Monday.
Good luck with that.
He's a nice guy.
We just have a few more minutes in store here on Talking Left, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back with more. Stick around.
That was super fun.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Ron Delano, attorney, Houston. Attention mesothelioma patients. If you or a loved one were exposed to asbestos years ago, this may be the cause of your mesothelioma lung cancer. Billions of dollars have been set aside to compensate mesothelioma sufferers, and you may be entitled to a tax-free share of that money, even if you're simply a family member. Make a free call to 800-764-3000 right now to learn more. Ask for your free mesothelioma information kit. Compensation to pay for medical bills and treatments may be available. Many mesothelioma patients were exposed to asbestos and didn't even know it. Secondhand asbestos exposure can also cause this mesothelioma cancer. Your asbestos exposure history needs to be investigated, and the first step is a free consultation. Don't wait. Call now. 800-764-3000. If you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma, find out about your legal rights and possible financial compensation. Mesothelioma cancer patients, get help now. The call and the information are free. 800-764-3000. 800-764-3000.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we've got a game-winning plan for football season. First, you'll need a few solid starters, like our Hall of Famer, Golden Crisp Fried Pickles, or our Garden Crasher, a huge formation of fresh veggies, hummus, and cucumber sauce. Go deep with not your ordinary onion rings, loaded with mushrooms, prime rib, and cheddar cheese, or kick it all off with our cheese curds, cheddar cheese fried to gooey perfection. And remember, heroes always share the glory.
Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
Imagine if part of your job was to enjoy your favorite beer.
Ah, delicious.
Just about every day, our founder, Jim Cook, enjoys his favorite, Sam Adams Boston Lager. Why? To make sure it tastes as good as that first batch he brewed in his kitchen. Smooth yet flavorful, with a deep amber color and a head so thick you can float a bottle cap on it. In fact, every batch of Boston Lager is tasted over 100 times before it leaves our brewery. So if we haven't tasted it, neither will you.
Cheers, man. Cheers.
Sam Adams Boston Lager.
Boston Beer Company, Boston, Mass. Save responsibly.
Are you concerned about blood pressure, cholesterol, or other cardiovascular issues? Are you taking an omega-3 supplement but are not seeing the results you've been promised? Dr. Steven Sinatra's famous Little Red Pill is the only fish oil alternative enhanced with resveratrol, providing you with sustained energy and the amazing health results you've been looking for. Now you can balance triglycerides and cholesterol, improve circulation, get rid of blood pressure problems, and many other signs of aging with Omega Q Plus with resveratrol. Call today to find out how to get a free bonus bottle of Omega Q Plus with resveratrol as part of our radio special. Dr. Steven Sinatra is America's #1 integrative cardiologist and formulated this alternative to fish oil with high levels of omega-3, DHA, and EPA from a triple purified calamarine source. You get vital omega-3s, DHA, and EPA, along with CoQ10, resveratrol, and 4 other ingredients for complete cardiovascular protection. This combination nearly doubles the power of fish oil for your heart, brain, arteries, eyes, and cholesterol. Call now to get your free bonus bottle at 1-800-575-0558 and ask for Omega Q Plus with resveratrol. That's 1-800-575-0558. Again, 1-800-575-0558.
The experts at Web.com want to build your business a successful website for free, just like they did for these Web.com customers.
We've used and looked at other website designers, but there's nobody better than Web.com.
Web.com can have your website built for free and up and running in as little as 7 days. Plus, promote your site on all the major search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing.
If you're in business today and you don't have a web presence, you won't be taken seriously.
Call now to get your website built for free. If after 30 days you're happy with your new website, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance, all for just one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing. Call 855-254-SITE, 855-254-SITE, 855-254-7483, or go to web.com/radio. There is no upfront charge for building the website, after which the ongoing fee applies. Rights to the website are relinquished upon cancellation unless otherwise purchased.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you're checking us out. SoFlo Radio, We Act Radio, or maybe hanging out with the chat in the chat room with us. Be sure to like us on Twitter, or like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter as
and
well.
Go over the website, and you'll see on the side. You go to talkingleft.com. On the side, you'll see the stations and things, and Mike, Rocky Mountain Mike. He has a comedy album of Stephanie Miller's show fame. Incredible producer, musician, performer, funny person, and an all-around really nice guy.
Yes.
He has produced his own comedy album, and it is coming out, I think, on the 15th. So you can pre-order it. You can click right there, go right to the Amazon, buy it.
Yes.
Buy a track, buy the whole album, whatever it is, but it will be hilarious.
We're just waiting for October 15th to roll around so we can get our copy.
Seriously. So, and we're going to have him on to talk about it once it drops. But
and he is the producer and creator of our theme music.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea of his talent, and he did that, and like he snapped his fingers, and it was done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah. In other amazing news, how about those commie socialists in Switzerland?
I'm with them.
I'm with them.
Did you like I sent you this article, and what was the subject line?
Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point.
Exactly.
Yes. A grassroots committee in Switzerland submitted a petition of over 100,000 signatures to institute a minimum income, an unconditional income that all Swiss citizens, that's hard to say, should receive every month, which is about $2,800. It's 2,500 Swiss francs.
Cool. So in other words, they're setting a floor for a standard of living.
Exactly. Saying that people shouldn't have to survive on less than this in a fairly wealthy country.
Sure.
Their population is about 8 million people, smaller than some U.S. cities.
Yep. Definitely smaller than New York City.
Yeah. They want everybody in the country to receive this minimum income to fight the wealth divide that is starting to grow in their country.
And there's a second law that's even better.
Yes, and the second law is going to be coming up for a vote here in about a month, which is a proposal to limit executive pay to no more what the company's lowest paid staff member earns in a single year. It's called the 112 Initiative. And
so in other words, executives cannot make more than 12 times their lowest paid worker.
Right. Well, there's a little bit of nuance there because they can make this in a month as opposed to what a worker makes in a year. But this is a real limit, saying that executives should not make 300-400 times what their lowest worker makes because they don't want this extreme wealth divide that we see in our country and so many other countries to take hold in Switzerland.
Which is also why nations fail.
Yes.
That extreme wealth divide. So
it's also very interesting that this came up because Switzerland has a law that popular initiatives are allowed to change public law by just getting a certain number of signatures. They're allowed to put things like this
National
on the ballot.
referendum.
Yeah, but they can do it so easily. I think it would be really interesting if we had that same kind of power here.
If we got money out of politics, maybe.
Fair enough. So anyhow, I wanted to thank our great guest today, Heather Bevan, like heaven. You can check her out at heatherbevan.policymike.com. Peter G., the author of Hannah Singer, Celestial Advocate. Justin Duckham with Talk Radio News Service. And Ian Millhiser of Think Progress. And of course, big shout outs and thank yous to everybody at We Act Radio, Alex Lawson, Kimon Freeman, Pete Callahan, Cliff Schechter, George Rodriguez of SoFlo Radio, Nicole Sandler of RadioOrNot.com, Rocky Mountain Mike, and you guys, our listeners. You're the reason we do what we do, and we will see you next week.